Well, Seattle is one of the country's most progressive cities, and that means that leaders there are treating their city as a test tube for radical ideology. The city's already ceded its public spaces to massive homeless encampments. Now they're trying another experiment, mass decriminalization. A report commissioned by a Seattle Business Association found that city prosecutors refused to prosecute almost half of all non-traffic criminal cases referred to them by the city's police. For example, more than 1,800 robberies were referred by police over an 18-month period, but less than 1,000 of them resulted in criminal charges. Christopher Rufo is a fellow at the Discovery Institute, and he joins us tonight. So this is kind of an amazing number. First perspective, this is unusual, correct?
Yeah, this is highly unusual, and really what you've seen is that Seattle has embarked on an experiment of mass decriminalization. Not only decriminalizing homeless encampments in public spaces, decriminalizing possession and use of drugs like heroin and fentanyl, and now essentially a de facto decriminalization of low-level property crimes, assaults, and even robberies. But the evidence is really clear. Seattle now has property crime rates that are 86% higher than Chicago, 250% higher
than Chicago?
Than Chicago, 250% higher than Los Angeles, and 400% higher than New York City. And they're kind of operating under this mistaken idea that if you decriminalize crime, you'll get less of it. But what we've seen, especially with property crime, is that you've gotten much, much more of it, and it's reaching a pretty dangerous point.
Is that the idea, or is it the idea that we have no moral standing to enforce the law and we hate ourselves so much that we can't possibly tell a criminal not to commit crime?
I think that's at the heart of it, and I think there is really a radical progressive ideology that is seeping its way through institutions in cities like Seattle, San Francisco, and Portland, where they're saying that essentially people who are homeless or committing crimes or addicted to drugs are the victims of an unjust society, and we can't hold them accountable because to do so would be another vestige of white supremacy or fascism or racism. But what you've seen is that it's essentially devolved into a situation where you have widespread addiction. You know, by the latest estimates, we have 6,000 homeless heroin and fentanyl addicts in the Seattle area. And we know that almost all of them don't work, and they have, on average, according to federal data, an $1,800 a month drug habits. So what happens? You get a huge increase in property crime. And I live in Seattle, Washington, and even just within a few blocks of my house, you know, you've had a guy douse another guy with lighter fluid, light him on fire. You've had a number of robberies. I had a neighbor who there was a deranged man banging on her door trying to gain entry, and it took 2 hours for police to arrive because they're so busy going call to call to call.
That's a horrifying story. Seattle, for our viewers who haven't been there, is one of the prettiest places in the world, and they're wrecking it.
Yeah, it's a beautiful city. It's a city, paradoxically, of really dynamic capitalist enterprise, mass prosperity, but it's being undermined by this kind of ideological commitment that is really kind of multiplying these problems. And now we're seeing huge uptick in property crime and even random acts of violence downtown.
It's the self-hating decadence of the new rich. You see it all up and down the coast. On your side of the country. Thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Godspeed out there.